Have you ever reached the end of a long, busy day only to wonder where the hours actually went? It's a feeling so many of us know all too well. That sense of being constantly in motion, yet somehow never truly present, never truly in command of our own time. We scroll, we rush, we multitask, we worry, and before we know it, another day has slipped through our fingers. But what if the real issue isn't how much time we have, but how we choose to use it? The ancient Stoics believed that time is our most precious resource, and that how we relate to it determines the quality of our entire lives. In his powerful essay on the shortness of life, the Roman philosopher Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a great deal of it." That line alone invites us to reconsider everything we assume about productivity, presence, and what it means to truly live. Stoicism offers more than just wisdom. It offers a practical framework for reclaiming our days, moment by moment. This isn't about adding more to your plate or forcing rigid routines. It's about uncovering the hidden structures for intentional living that are already woven into the fabric of ordinary life. Through principles like presence, discernment, and deliberate action, Stoicism teaches us how to shift from being passive passengers in our own lives to becoming conscious architects of our time and attention. And the beautiful part, you don't need to retreat to a mountaintop or overhaul your entire schedule to start seeing the benefits. The tools are right here, hidden in plain sight, in your morning routine, your commute, your work tasks, even in moments of waiting or boredom. In this video, we'll explore how you can apply these timeless Stoic practices to transform the rhythm of your days. We'll look at how to begin with purpose, navigate challenges with calm, and end with reflection, all without adding extra hours to the clock. This is about making the time you already have feel richer, deeper, and more meaningfully yours, because when you change how you move through your ordinary moments, you change how you experience your entire life. So if you've ever felt like time is slipping away, or that you're constantly busy but never truly fulfilled, you're in the right place. Let's begin this journey into the heart of Stoic living and discover how to reclaim not just your time, but your presence, your focus, and your peace. So let me ask you this: what do the first 10 minutes of your morning usually look like? For many of us, it's a blur of reaching for the phone, scanning notifications, maybe rushing to get coffee started while our mind is already racing through the day's demands. It feels normal, even inevitable, but the Stoics would see this as a critical missed opportunity, a chance to set the tone for your entire day before the outside world has a say. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most famous Stoics and a Roman emperor, understood this deeply. In his personal journal, known today as Meditations, he wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." This wasn't just poetic reflection, it was a deliberate practice. He began each day by grounding himself in what truly mattered, preparing his mind to meet whatever challenges might come with clarity and virtue. This practice is what the Stoics called prosochē, a state of vigilant, focused attention. It's the art of waking up not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. Instead of letting the day happen to you, you approach it with intention. Think about the difference between a reactive morning and a Stoic morning. In a reactive morning, you might scroll through social media, absorb negative news, or rush into tasks feeling scattered. Your attention is immediately hijacked by external demands, but a Stoic morning is built around reclaiming that attention. It could be as simple as taking 5 minutes to sit quietly, breathe, and reflect on what's within your control, your efforts, your attitudes, your responses, and what isn't, like other people's actions or unexpected events. You're not adding more to your to-do list, you're shifting how you relate to the list itself. Imagine starting your day by asking yourself a version of the questions Marcus asked himself. What kind of person do I want to be today? What challenges might arise, and how can I meet them with patience and wisdom? This isn't about positive thinking, it's about practical preparation. It's aligning your mindset with your values before the rush of obligations pulls you in different directions. Maybe for you, this looks like writing down one intention for the day, a commitment to listen more carefully in meetings, or to respond rather than react when stress arises. Or perhaps it's pausing to appreciate something simple, like the warmth of your coffee or the quiet of the early hours. The goal isn't to create a lengthy ritual, but to insert a small pocket of purpose into those first moments. So here's a challenge for you. Identify just one small, intentional action you can incorporate into your morning routine tomorrow. It doesn't have to be grand. It could be resisting the urge to check your phone for the first 10 minutes, or taking 3 deep breaths before you step out of bed. The point is to consciously choose how you want your day to begin, rather than surrendering that choice to habit or distraction. This simple shift can create a ripple effect, helping you carry that sense of purpose and clarity into everything that follows. Your daily commute doesn't have to be wasted time. In fact, the Stoics would argue it's one of the most potent training grounds you have for building resilience and practicing mindfulness. Think about it, whether you're driving through traffic, crammed onto a train, or even walking through a crowded street, the commute is filled with moments that feel entirely out of your control. And that's exactly why it's so valuable. The ancient Stoic teacher Epictetus, who was born into slavery and faced tremendous adversity, put it perfectly when he said, "Happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control, and some things are not." Your commute is a daily masterclass in learning that difference. When you're stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic or your train is delayed, it's natural to feel that surge of frustration. Your muscles tense, your mind starts racing, and you might even begin mentally rehearsing all the reasons this inconvenience is ruining your day. But what if you could see that traffic jam not as a thief stealing your time, but as an opportunity to practice exactly what Epictetus taught? The Stoics didn't just accept obstacles, they welcomed them as chances to strengthen their character. They called this the art of turning obstacles into advantages. A delay becomes a moment to practice patience. A crowded subway car becomes a lesson in maintaining inner calm amidst external chaos. You're not just going from point A to point B, you're in a mobile classroom for virtue. So how does this work in practice? Let's say you're driving and someone cuts you off. The automatic reaction might be anger, maybe even honking or yelling. But a Stoic response would be to pause and recognize that the other driver's actions are entirely outside your control. Your only domain is your reaction. You can choose to take a deep breath, let the moment pass, and refuse to let someone else's bad behavior dictate your inner state. Or if you're on public transport, instead of scrolling mindlessly through social media and absorbing more stress, you could use those minutes to listen to a podcast on Stoic philosophy or simply practice observing your surroundings without judgment. Notice the rhythm of the train, the diversity of people, the simple fact that you're moving, and use it as an anchor to the present moment. This shift in perspective transforms the entire experience. The goal isn't to eliminate the feeling of frustration entirely. That's nearly impossible. It's to create a small space between the event and your response, and in that space, choose a more virtuous path. You're not just commuting, you're training your mind to remain steady no matter what the world throws at you, and this training has ripple effects far beyond the drive or ride itself. The patience you cultivate in traffic can help you stay calm during a stressful meeting. The mindfulness you practice on the train can make you more present in conversations with your family. You're building mental muscles that serve you everywhere. Take a moment to recall your most recent frustrating commute. What happened? How did you react? Now imagine how it might have felt if you had approached it with a stoic mindset. Instead of fighting against the delay, you accepted it as a given. Instead of fuming in silence, you used the time to listen to something enriching or simply to observe your own thoughts without getting swept away by them. The situation itself didn't change, the traffic was still there, the delay still happened, but your relationship to it transformed completely. That's the real secret. Time isn't wasted when you're using it to become a wiser, more resilient person. Your commute isn't just a journey across town, it's a journey into your own capacity for peace. How often do you feel completely overwhelmed by your to-do list? That sense of staring at a mountain of tasks, emails, and deadlines, wondering how you'll ever get through it all. It's a feeling that can drain your energy before you've even begun. But what if the real problem isn't the length of your list, but where you're choosing to direct your mental focus? This is where one of the most powerful Stoic tools comes into play: Epictetus' dichotomy of control. In his foundational work, The Enchiridion, he opens with this life-changing idea: some things are within our power while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, property, reputation, office, and, in a word, whatever is not of our own doing. This isn't just philosophical theory, it's a practical filter for your entire workday. Let's break that down. What you can control is remarkably narrow but incredibly powerful: your judgments, your intentions, your efforts, and your responses. What you cannot control is almost everything else: the outcomes of your projects, how your colleagues behave, whether your boss is in a good mood, the market conditions, even the technology you rely on functioning perfectly. The stress and overwhelm we so often feel usually comes from pouring our energy into that second category, the things we cannot control. We worry about whether a client will like our presentation, whether we'll get the promotion, whether a project will succeed. But according to the Stoics, that's like trying to control the weather. It's a futile effort that only leads to frustration and exhaustion. Now, imagine applying this to a common work scenario. You have a major project due. You've done your part: thorough research, careful planning, thoughtful execution. You've sent it off for review. The old way of operating might involve constantly refreshing your email, anxiously imagining criticisms, maybe even losing sleep over the outcome. You've tied your sense of peace and success to something entirely outside your control, someone else's opinion. The Stoic approach is radically different. It asks you to recognize that your work is done, your effort, that thing you controlled, is complete. The outcome now belongs to the realm of things, not up to you. This doesn't mean you don't care about the result. It means you refuse to let your well-being be held hostage by it. You can hope for the best, but you've already found success in having done your job with integrity and skill. This shift changes everything. It turns the workday from a series of external stressors into an internal practice ground for virtue. Your focus moves from trying to manage uncontrollable outcomes to mastering what you truly can influence: the quality of your attention, the integrity of your effort, the ethical choices you make in interactions. A difficult coworker becomes not a source of irritation, but an opportunity to practice patience and understanding. A tight deadline becomes a chance to practice focus and discipline, not panic. You start to see that your real job isn't to control every result. It's to bring your best self to every task regardless of the circumstances. So let's make this practical. Take a moment to think about your own work. Can you list 3 things that are within your control? Maybe it's your preparation for a meeting, the tone you use in an email, or the focus you give to a single task without distraction. Now, what about 3 things that are not within your control? Perhaps it's how your feedback is received, whether your idea gets approved, or the timeline of a project set by others. Just the act of writing these down creates clarity. It draws a boundary around your responsibility, freeing you from the weight of the world. Now, reflect on this. Where have you been investing most of your mental energy lately? Is it in your own efforts and attitudes, or in anxiously trying to manage outcomes and other people's actions? That simple question can be the first step toward reclaiming not just your focus, but your peace of mind. The workday becomes less about reacting to external demands and more about the conscious practice of what is truly yours to govern. Now consider how often we treat meals as just another item on the to-do list, something to be consumed quickly between tasks, often while scrolling through a screen or mentally rehearsing the next part of our day. We eat without tasting, nourish our bodies without awareness, and in doing so, we miss a profound opportunity to practice one of the most fundamental Stoic virtues, temperance. The Stoics weren't against pleasure, but they were deeply cautious about how we engage with it. They believed that even the simplest acts, like eating, could be either a training ground for self-discipline or a slippery slope into mindless consumption. Seneca, in his moral letters, warned against the pursuit of luxury at the expense of inner freedom, writing, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." For the Stoics, mindful eating wasn't about gourmet ingredients or elaborate presentations. It was about cultivating gratitude, exercising moderation, and reclaiming a moment of presence in a distracted world. Think about your own relationship with food. How many lunches have you eaten at your desk while answering emails? How many dinners have been shared with a television screen rather than with the people around you? This fragmentation of attention isn't just a modern habit, it's a missed philosophical opportunity. The Stoic practice of mindful eating invites us to transform a daily necessity into a deliberate ritual. It's about recognizing that the act of nourishing yourself is not merely biological, it's a chance to exercise choice, to practice appreciation for what you have, and to strengthen your ability to be fully where you are. When you eat mindfully, you are not just feeding your body, you are training your mind to engage with the present moment, to distinguish between true need and mere want, and to find contentment in simplicity rather than constantly seeking more. Let's make this practical. Imagine 2 ways of eating the same meal. In the first scenario, you're at your computer, fork in one hand, mouse in the other, barely registering the taste of your food as you rush to meet a deadline. The meal is functional, hurried, and ultimately forgettable. Now imagine the Stoic alternative. You sit down at a table, no phone, no screen, no distractions. You take a moment to consider the food in front of you, reflecting on the effort and circumstances that brought it to your plate. You eat slowly, savoring each bite, noticing the textures and flavors. You stop when you are satisfied, not stuffed. This isn't about turning every meal into a silent meditation retreat. It's about bringing a gentle, conscious attention to an act we often perform on autopilot. You are practicing the Stoic art of sufficiency, knowing what is enough and appreciating it fully. This approach aligns perfectly with the Stoic value of self-discipline, not as a form of deprivation, but as a path to greater freedom. By choosing to eat with intention, you are exercising your ability to control your impulses and direct your attention. You are reminding yourself that you have the power to choose how you engage with even the most routine moments of your life. And in that choice, you reclaim a sense of agency and time. A meal eaten mindfully somehow feels longer and more satisfying, not because the clock slows down, but because you are actually there to experience it. You are filling the time with presence rather than letting it slip away unnoticed. So here is a simple challenge for you. This week, choose one meal to eat without any distractions. It doesn't have to be dinner. It could be a quiet breakfast or a solo lunch. Put away your devices, turn off the background noise, and just eat. Pay attention to the food, its taste, its smell, its texture. Notice if you feel the urge to rush or reach for your phone, and gently bring your focus back. Afterwards, take a moment to reflect on how that felt. Did the meal seem more substantial? Did you feel more satisfied with less? This small experiment isn't about changing your diet. It's about changing your relationship with a daily ritual. It's about discovering how a Stoic approach to something as ordinary as eating can help you reclaim moments of peace and mindfulness in the midst of a busy life. Ever lie in bed replaying the day's events, your mind circling around a conversation that didn't go as planned or a task you left unfinished? This nightly mental replay is something most of us experience, but for the Stoics, it wasn't a sign of anxiety. It was the foundation of a powerful daily practice known as the evening review, or in Latin, examen. Seneca, the great Roman statesman and Stoic philosopher, didn't just let his days blur together. He ended each one with a deliberate and honest conversation with himself. In his essay on anger, he describes this ritual, writing, "I make use of this privilege, and every day I plead my cause before the court of my own soul. When the light has been taken away and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day and go back over what I have done and said. I hide nothing from myself, I pass nothing by." This wasn't about self-criticism or dwelling on mistakes. It was a structured method for continuous learning, growth, and aligning his actions with his deepest values. The goal of this practice is profoundly practical. It's about turning the raw material of your day, the successes, the failures, the neutral moments, into wisdom for tomorrow. Seneca believed that without this nightly audit, we are doomed to repeat the same patterns, making the same errors in judgment, and reacting from the same unexamined impulses. The evening review is how you close the loop on your day, extracting its lessons so you can move forward with greater clarity and virtue. It transforms a potentially chaotic stream of memories into a focused curriculum for self-improvement. Think of it as the Stoic version of a software update for your character. Each night, you identify the bugs, patch the vulnerabilities, and reinforce the code that's working well, ensuring you operate more effectively when you wake up. So what does this look like in practice? You don't need a leather-bound journal or an hour of solitude. The Stoic evening review can be beautifully simple. One effective method is to ask yourself 3 core questions. First, what did I do well today? This isn't about inflating your ego. It's about recognizing moments where you acted with courage, justice, wisdom, or temperance. Maybe you held your tongue when you were provoked, offered help to a colleague without being asked, or finally tackled a task you'd been avoiding. Acknowledging these victories reinforces positive behavior and shows you that progress is possible even in small steps. The second question is, what could I have done better? Here, you move from celebration to clear-eyed, compassionate analysis. The key is to focus on your own actions and judgments, not on blaming external events or other people. Instead of thinking, my boss was unreasonable in that meeting, you might ask, how could I have communicated my perspective more calmly and clearly? Or instead of lamenting a wasted afternoon, You might explore what underlying impulse led you to procrastinate. Was it a fear of failure, a lack of clear priorities, or simply mental fatigue? This question isn't designed to make you feel guilty. It's designed to identify specific, adjustable levers for improvement. The third and perhaps most stoic question is, where did I invest energy in things outside my control? This is where you audit your mental and emotional expenditures for the day. Did you spend an hour worrying about a decision that hasn't been made yet? Did you get angry about a traffic jam or a delayed delivery? By spotting these moments, you gently remind yourself of the core Stoic principle, that your peace of mind depends on focusing only on what is yours to influence. This question helps you catch yourself in the act of misplacing your attention, making it easier to correct course the next time a similar situation arises. The entire process can take just 5 minutes. You can do it in the quiet moments before sleep or even while washing up for the night. The format isn't important, the intention is. The goal is to end your day not with anxiety or regret, but with a sense of purposeful closure. You are putting the day to rest, having learned from it, so that you can begin the next one with a cleaner slate and a wiser mind. This practice builds a powerful feedback loop in your life, where every day, no matter how challenging, becomes a source of insight and every night an opportunity for growth. Tonight, why not give it a try before you go to sleep? Set aside just 5 minutes. You can think through these questions in your mind or jot down a few notes if that helps. Don't aim for perfection, just aim for honesty. Then, see if you can identify one single insight, one small adjustment you can carry into tomorrow. It might be a commitment to pause before responding to emails, a decision to start your morning without your phone, or simply a reminder that some things are not worth your worry. This small act of reflection is how you turn the passage of time into tangible progress, ensuring that you aren't just living your days, but truly learning from them. We live in a world that often prizes constant motion, where the ability to multitask and switch rapidly between demands is seen as a badge of productivity. But this relentless jumping from one task to the next comes with a hidden cost. It fractures our attention and fills the space between our thoughts with mental clutter. The Stoics understood that true clarity and power don't come from doing more things simultaneously, but from doing each thing with our full, undivided presence. They recognized the profound value of creating intentional space, even if just for a few seconds, to reconnect with our inner compass before being swept along by the next impulse or demand. This isn't about slowing down for its own sake. It's about reclaiming sovereignty over your attention in a world designed to steal it. Marcus Aurelius, who carried the immense weight of leading an empire, frequently wrote about the necessity of these mental respites. In his meditations, he advised himself to retreat into yourself. No other place offers more peace and freedom than your own soul. He wasn't talking about a week-long vacation. He was describing a momentary, internal withdrawal, a conscious pause to step out of the rushing stream of events and back onto the solid ground of your own reasoning mind. For a Stoic, this brief retreat isn't an escape from reality, but a way to engage with it more wisely. It's in these small gaps that we can examine our impulses, question whether a reaction is truly necessary, and choose a response aligned with virtue instead of being carried away by the current of habit or emotion. Think about your own workflow. How do you typically move from one activity to the next? Do you finish a report and immediately click open your email, or end a meeting and instantly reach for your phone to check the news? This automatic pilot mode might feel efficient, but it actually erodes your focus and heightens that background sense of being mentally scattered. Each unchecked transition adds to the cognitive load, like a computer that never gets rebooted and gradually slows down. The Stoic pause is the equivalent of hitting the reset button. It doesn't require a meditation cushion or a special app. It can be as simple as taking 30 seconds after closing a document to sit back, take 3 conscious breaths, and silently ask yourself a grounding question like, what is most important for me to turn my attention to now? Or am I acting from intention or just reacting to the latest notification? This tiny space works like a cognitive airlock, allowing you to leave the mental environment of the previous task behind and enter the next one with fresh focus. It prevents the emotional residue from a difficult conversation from spilling over into your creative work, or the stress of a tight deadline from coloring your interaction with your family. You are literally building a buffer against the chain reaction of impulsive behavior. Consider a practical example. Instead of rushing from a hectic work call directly into helping your child with homework, you could take just 1 minute to stand by a window, look at the sky, and consciously transition your mindset from professional problem solver to patient present parent. That minute isn't wasted time, it's an investment in the quality of your attention for the next activity. The power of this practice lies in its cumulative effect. Each intentional pause is a small vote for clarity over clutter, for choice over compulsion. Over time, these moments build your capacity for what the Stoics called apatheia, not apathy, but a state of inner calm where you are not ruled by destructive or distracting passions. You begin to notice the subtle impulse to reach for your phone when you feel a moment of boredom, and instead you allow the silence to simply be. You feel the urge to immediately criticize an idea, and you create a space to first understand it. These pauses become the birthplace of wiser responses and more deliberate actions. So where in your own day could you plant one of these seeds of stillness? Identify a single transition point, perhaps after you shut down your computer for the day, or right before you walk into your home in the evening. It could be the moment between finishing lunch and starting your afternoon work. Choose one junction that typically feels rushed or automatic, and commit to inserting just 30 seconds of purposeful pause there tomorrow. Don't try to clear your mind or achieve a special state. Just stop, breathe, and reconnect with your intention. Notice what happens. Does the next activity feel different? Do you feel more in command of your focus? This simple experiment is a direct way to apply ancient Stoic wisdom to the frantic pace of modern life, turning the spaces between your tasks into opportunities for reclaiming mental clarity. How many times have you found yourself in a waiting room, a long line, or sitting in your car early for an appointment, and your hand instinctively reaches for your phone? It's become our default setting, this urge to fill every sliver of idle time with digital noise, as if a moment of silence is something to be feared or avoided. We scroll, we tap, we consume, often without even realizing we're doing it. But what if these inevitable pockets of waiting aren't voids to be filled, but hidden gifts to be unwrapped? The Stoics didn't see empty time, they saw fertile ground for mental cultivation. Epictetus, who knew a great deal about making the most of circumstances he didn't choose, offered timeless advice. He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. This perspective turns waiting from a passive state of lack, I don't have what I want right now, into an active state of possession. I have this moment, and I can choose how to use it. This shift is at the heart of the Stoic approach. They viewed these unclaimed minutes not as stolen time, but as a rare and valuable resource for training the mind. In our modern world, we are almost never truly bored. The phone is a constant escape hatch from any potential discomfort or stillness. But by reflexively avoiding boredom, we are also avoiding an opportunity to connect with ourselves, to practice patience, and to cultivate an inner resilience that doesn't depend on external stimulation. The Stoic goal was to reach a state where your peace of mind is unshakable, whether you're in the middle of a hectic crisis or sitting silently in a dentist's office. Those waiting periods are the perfect low-stakes environment to practice for the high-stakes moments of life. So what does this productive use of waiting time actually look like? It doesn't require a philosophical textbook or a set of flashcards. It can be as simple as turning your attention outward instead of downward at a screen. Start by just observing your surroundings with genuine curiosity. Notice the play of light on the floor, the sound of distant conversations, the architecture of the room. This isn't just killing time, it's a practice in mindfulness, anchoring you firmly in the present moment instead of anxiously projecting into a future you can't control. Another powerful practice is to use the time for a mental rehearsal of Stoic principles. If you know you have a difficult conversation coming up later in the day, use your time in line to mentally prepare. How might you apply the dichotomy of control? What would a virtuous response look like if things don't go your way? You are essentially doing cognitive rehearsals, strengthening your neural pathways for calm and rational response before you even need them. Perhaps the most profound use of this time is for gratitude. Waiting often comes with a subtle undercurrent of impatience and entitlement. I shouldn't have to wait. You can directly counter this by shifting your focus to what you have to be thankful for in that very moment. Maybe you're waiting for a doctor. Be grateful you have access to healthcare. You're waiting in a long line at the grocery store. Be grateful you have the means to buy food. This isn't about Pollyannish positivity. It's a disciplined exercise in reframing your perspective, which is a core Stoic skill. It moves you from a state of lack to a state of abundance using nothing but your own power of judgment. The next time you find yourself in one of these inevitable waiting periods, I challenge you to break the automatic cycle. Instead of pulling out your phone, take a single conscious breath and decide to use that time differently. It might feel strange or even uncomfortable at first. That's a sign you're breaking a powerful habit. Try putting the phone away and just letting your mind be. Observe, reflect, or simply rest in the awareness that you don't need to be doing something every second to be productive. You might just discover that these small moments of pause become the most grounding and insightful parts of your entire day. Multitasking is an illusion. It fractures your time and focus, creating the deceptive feeling of productivity while actually eroding the quality of everything you do. We've been sold this idea that juggling multiple tasks at once is a skill, a marker of efficiency in our busy world. But the Stoics would see it for what it truly is, a surrender of our attention, a scattered way of moving through the world that prevents us from bringing our whole selves to any single moment. This philosophy champions the exact opposite, the profound power of single tasking, of immersing yourself so completely in one activity that everything else falls away. It's about reclaiming the depth of your experience from the shallowness of constant distraction. Marcus Aurelius offered a powerful lens for this practice in his Meditations, advising himself to perform every action in life as though it were your last. Read that again, not with a sense of morbid fear, but with a clarifying urgency. If this were genuinely the last time you would ever write an email, have a conversation with your child, or even sip a cup of tea, how would your approach change? You would undoubtedly pour your entire being into it. You would notice the weight of the mug in your hand, the warmth spreading through your fingers, the subtle aroma. You would listen not just to the words your child is saying, but to the cadence of their voice and the feeling behind them. This is the Stoic art of single tasking. It's not merely a productivity hack. It's a profound exercise in mindfulness and virtue, a way to infuse the most ordinary actions with extraordinary significance. Let's make this concrete. Consider two ways of approaching a common work task, like writing a report. In the multitasking scenario, you have your document open, but so is your email inbox. A notification pops up and you immediately switch to answer it. Then you remember you need to check a fact online, and soon you're down a rabbit hole of irrelevant articles. 20 minutes later, you return to your report, but you have to reread the last few sentences to remember your train of thought. Your focus has been shattered, and it takes valuable mental energy to rebuild that momentum. You may feel busy, but you've accomplished very little of substance. Now, picture the single-tasking alternative. You decide to dedicate the next 45 minutes solely to writing that report. You close all other tabs, silence your phone, and place it out of sight. You set a timer if it helps. For that block of time, the report is your entire world. Your mind isn't pulled in a dozen different directions. All your creative and intellectual resources are channeled into this one endeavor. The quality of your work improves dramatically because you're thinking more deeply and writing more clearly. But perhaps more importantly, your state of mind is entirely different. There's a calmness, a sense of control and purpose that is utterly absent from the frantic, fractured energy of multitasking. You are practicing what the Stoics called arete excellence of character. By bringing your full capability and presence to the task at hand, this principle extends far beyond work. It transforms mundane activities into moments of rich engagement. Washing the dishes becomes an exercise in focusing on the sensation of warm water and the simple rhythm of the task, rather than a chore to rush through while planning your weekend. Having a conversation means truly listening to the person in front of you, instead of formulating your response while half-checking your phone. Single-tasking is how we reclaim the texture of our lives from the blur of constant switching. It's a disciplined commitment to being where you are, fully and completely. Tomorrow, I want you to conduct a small experiment. Choose just one task. It could be a 15-minute work assignment, reading a chapter of a book, or even something as simple as drinking your morning coffee. Commit to doing that one thing with your undivided attention. Remove all potential distractions beforehand. When your mind inevitably wanders, as it will, gently guide it back to the single task at hand without judgment. Afterwards, take a moment to reflect. How did it feel? Did the task seem easier or harder? Did you notice details you normally would have missed? This isn't about achieving perfection. It's about noticing the difference in the quality of your attention and the quality of the experience itself. You might just discover that by doing less at once, you actually experience so much more. How many hours would you estimate you spend staring at screens each day? It's a startling question to sit with, and if you're like most of us, the real number is probably far higher than you'd like to admit. Our devices promise connection and information, but they often deliver something very different, a constant, low-grade distraction that pulls us away from the present moment and fractures our attention into 1,000 tiny pieces. The Stoics, living long before the digital age, understood this human vulnerability perfectly. They warned against surrendering our most precious inner resource, our mental space, to any external stimulus that wasn't aligned with our core values and virtues. Seneca, in his penetrating letters, observed this tendency with stunning clarity, writing, "Men are so thoughtless, nay, so mad, that some, through fear of death, force themselves to die." While he wasn't talking about smartphones, he was pinpointing the same human impulse. We often choose behaviors that harm us in the long run for a fleeting sense of relief or escape in the short term. He saw people who are constantly busy with trivialities, mistaking motion for meaning and activity for accomplishment. This ancient insight cuts right to the heart of our modern relationship with technology. How often do you pick up your phone not out of necessity, but out of a reflexive itch to escape a moment of boredom, an awkward silence, or a difficult emotion? That endless scroll through social media, the compulsive checking of news feeds, the constant ping of notifications, each one is a tiny surrender of your attention. You are voluntarily handing over your focus, your time, and your peace of mind to algorithms designed to keep you engaged, not enriched. The Stoic practice here is to apply a fierce discipline of discernment. It's about asking a simple but powerful question of every digital interaction. Is this serving my virtue? Is this helping me become wiser, more courageous, or more disciplined? Or is it merely a hollow diversion, a digital triviality that Seneca would caution us against? Reclaiming your attention doesn't require you to throw your phone into the ocean. It's about building intentional, Stoic-inspired boundaries that put you back in the driver's seat of your own mind. Start with the notifications. Every buzz, beep, and banner is a deliberate attempt to pull your focus away from what you are doing right now. Go into your settings and turn off every single notification that isn't absolutely essential for your work or personal safety. You'll quickly realize that almost none of them are. This one act alone creates massive pockets of uninterrupted mental space throughout your day. Another powerful practice is to designate tech-free periods. This could be the first hour after you wake up, the hour before bed, or even entire meals. During these windows, the device is out of sight and ideally in another room. You are not just avoiding a screen, you are actively practicing the Stoic virtue of self-control and creating room for richer, more present connections with the world and people right in front of you. You can take this a step further by applying a concept the Stoics called Premeditation of the Premeditation of Evils, to your tech use. Before you unlock your phone, pause for just 3 seconds and premeditate what might happen. You might intend to quickly check the weather, but you know the likely outcome is falling down a 30-minute rabbit hole of irrelevant videos and comparison-driven anxiety. By visualizing this negative potential in advance, you strengthen your resolve to make a more virtuous choice. You are using your reason, your logos, to override the impulsive pull of habit. This transforms a mindless action into a moment of conscious choice. So here is your reflective challenge. Take a moment to identify one single app or digital habit that you feel consistently steals your time and attention without offering anything of real value in return. It might be a social media platform you open out of boredom, a news app that fuels anxiety, or even a habit of checking work email late into the night. Now, what would a Stoic boundary around that habit look like? It doesn't have to be extreme. Maybe it's deleting the app from your phone and only accessing it on your computer for 15 minutes a day. Perhaps it's turning off all notifications from it or setting a timer when you use it. The specific boundary matters less than the intention behind it, the conscious decision to no longer surrender your mental space without a fight. This is how you start to wield technology as a tool for a good life, rather than letting it wield you. We've built a world that treats boredom like a problem to be solved, an uncomfortable void we rush to fill with the nearest screen or distraction. We carry tiny entertainment portals in our pockets precisely to avoid ever having to sit with a quiet moment and our own thoughts. But what if this relentless pursuit of stimulation is actually costing us something precious? The Stoics offered a radically different perspective. They didn't see emptiness or quiet as something to fear, but as a fertile ground for cultivating the one thing we can always rely on, our inner resources. For them, the ability to be content with nothing but your own mind was the ultimate freedom. Epictetus, who knew profound hardship, put it plainly. He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. This rejoicing isn't dependent on external entertainment. It's an internal state of sufficiency that turns boredom from an enemy into an ally. Think about your own automatic response to a moment of downtime. Waiting 5 minutes for a friend, you pull out your phone. Sitting in a quiet room, you turn on the television for background noise. these actions are so habitual we don't even question them. We've been conditioned to believe that every second must be optimized for input and consumption. The Stoic invitation is to challenge this conditioning. They believed that a mind constantly fed by external stimuli never learns to feed itself. It never discovers its own capacity for creativity, for deep reflection, or for simple, restful calm. In a state of constant input, we lose touch with our own inner narrative, our hopes, our fears, our original ideas. Boredom, in the Stoic sense, is the necessary pause that allows that inner voice to be heard again. It's the blank canvas upon which our own thoughts can finally paint. Consider the stark contrast between two ways of handling a boring situation. You're on a long, monotonous train ride with a dead phone battery. The modern impulse is to feel frustration and anxiety cut off from the digital world. You might fidget, sigh, and count the minutes until the ordeal is over. Now apply a Stoic lens. This isn't an ordeal, it's an unexpected gift of time. Without the option for distraction, you are forced inward. You might start daydreaming, solving a problem you've been putting off, or simply observing the landscape passing by with a new level of detail. You might even just sit there doing nothing, and in that stillness, find a sense of peace that your normally busy schedule never permits. The same exact stretch of time is transformed from a period of lack into a period of abundance, not because the circumstances changed, but because your judgment of them did. This practice is about more than just passing the time pleasantly. It's a training ground for resilience. By willingly stepping into moments of quiet and resisting the urge to immediately fill them, you are building your mental muscles. You are proving to yourself that you don't need external validation or entertainment to be okay. You are practicing the Stoic art of finding contentment within, regardless of your external circumstances. This is a superpower in a world designed to make you feel perpetually wanting. The person who is comfortable in silence is far less vulnerable to the anxiety of FOMO, the pressure of social comparison, and the frantic pace of modern life. They carry a portable oasis of calm with them everywhere they go, so I want you to try a small act of recollection. Think back to a recent time when you felt genuinely bored. Maybe you were stuck in a waiting room, or you had a lazy Sunday afternoon with nothing planned. How did you respond? Did you immediately reach for a device or find some other way to distract yourself? Now, imagine an alternative. What if you had simply allowed yourself to be bored? What might have emerged in that space? A forgotten memory, a creative solution to a problem you've been mulling over, a moment of clarity about a decision you need to make. Or perhaps just the rare and valuable experience of true mental rest. The next time you feel that familiar itch of boredom, see if you can resist the automatic pull of your phone for just a few minutes longer. You might be surprised at what you discover when you finally give your own mind the space to speak. You're focused on a task, deeply immersed in a state of flow, and suddenly an interruption. A colleague pops by with an urgent question, a child tugs at your sleeve, an unexpected notification blares from your phone. That surge of frustration is immediate and visceral. Your concentration shatters, your plans are derailed, and for a moment, it feels like your entire rhythm for the day has been thrown off course. This experience is so universal, it's almost a hallmark of modern life. But the Stoics would see this moment not as a nuisance to be endured, but as a perfect, unexpected examination in the practice of virtue. Marcus Aurelius, who faced interruptions ranging from military coups to bureaucratic disputes, offered a perspective that can completely reframe these moments. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This isn't a cryptic riddle, it's a practical manual for mental resilience. The interruption itself is not the obstacle to your peace. Your judgment about the interruption is. This shift in perspective is everything. An interruption is, by its very nature, something outside your control. You cannot will the world into perfect silence in order to accommodate your to-do list. What you can control, as Epictetus tirelessly taught, is your judgment of the event and your subsequent response. When you feel that flash of irritation, that's your impression of the event. The Stoic practice is to insert a tiny, powerful pause between that initial impression and your assent to it. In that space, you can exercise your reason. You can ask, is this interruption truly a catastrophe, or is it merely an event? Is my frustration serving any purpose other than making me miserable? By questioning your automatic reaction, you reclaim your power. The interruption ceases to be a threat to your peace and becomes an opportunity to reinforce it. You are using the friction of the outside world to sharpen your own character. Let's make this tangible with a real-world example. Imagine you're working on a complex report with a tight deadline. Your concentration is absolute. Then, a team member appears at your desk looking anxious. They need 5 minutes of your time to talk through a problem they're having. The automatic, non-stoic reaction might be internal sighing, giving terse answers while mentally staying with your report, or even expressing visible annoyance. This reaction not only strains the relationship, but also ensures you return to your work flustered and distracted, having wasted mental energy on resistance. Now apply the Stoic response. The interruption happens. You feel the initial jolt of frustration, but you recognize it as an impression, not a command. You take one conscious breath. You remember Marcus's words, this impediment can advance the action. How? This is now a chance to practice the virtue of kindness and teamwork. You deliberately turn your full attention to your colleague, listening actively to their issue. By giving them your complete focus for those 5 minutes, you might solve the problem faster and more effectively. You've strengthened a work relationship and practiced patience. When they leave, you take another brief moment to reset your mind before returning to your report. You return calmer and more focused than if you had fought the interruption the entire time. The task was delayed by 5 minutes, but your peace of mind was never lost. You turned the obstacle into the way. This approach transforms interruptions from personal affronts into neutral events that serve a higher purpose, your training. A child interrupting your work is no longer a distraction but an invitation to practice patience and presence with someone you love. A cancelled meeting isn't a waste of time but a gift of unexpected minutes you can use for reflection or preparation. A technology failure is a chance to practice adaptability and humor. The event itself doesn't change, your entire experience of it does. You stop seeing the world as something that should conform to your plans and start seeing it as the unpredictable, dynamic training ground it has always been. Think back to your most recent significant interruption. What was it? How did you react in that moment? Now, replay the scene in your mind, but this time, imagine applying this Stoic framework. What if, instead of meeting that interruption with resistance and frustration, you had met it with calm acceptance and a curious mind, asking, how can this moment serve my practice of virtue? How would that have changed the emotional texture of the experience for you? And perhaps more importantly, how might it have changed the outcome? This simple act of reflection is how you begin to rewire your automatic responses, turning life's inevitable interruptions into your greatest teachers. Consider for a moment that a simple 10-minute walk could be one of the most profound philosophical practices available to you. It's not just about moving your body, it's about shifting your perspective, literally and figuratively stepping outside the confines of your daily concerns to reconnect with a much larger, more timeless reality. The Stoics, though often pictured in marble halls or dusty libraries, understood this deeply. They recognized that nature itself is a master teacher of humility, resilience, and calm. Seneca, in his moral letters, frequently advocated for periodic withdrawal from the busyness of town, writing, "We should take wandering outdoor walks so that the mind might be nourished and refreshed by the open air and deep breathing." For him, this wasn't a mere leisure activity. It was an essential discipline for maintaining mental and spiritual health, a way to shake off the petty anxieties of human affairs and realign with the rational order of the cosmos. When you step outside, you are entering a space that operates on an entirely different timescale. The trees grow slowly, the seasons turn with patient certainty, and the sky stretches out in a vastness that dwarfs our personal worries. This is why the Stoics saw such value in nature. It provides a powerful, visceral reminder that our problems are small, temporary, and part of a much grander whole. Marcus Aurelius constantly drew on imagery from nature in his meditations to ground himself. He would reflect on the cycles of growth and decay, the beauty of a simple leaf or a ripening fruit, to cultivate a sense of acceptance and peace. He wasn't just admiring the scenery, he was engaging in a deliberate practice of gaining perspective. In nature, we see the Stoic principles of acceptance and amor fati, love of fate played out on a grand scale. A storm isn't personal, it simply is. A fallen tree decomposes to nourish new life. There is no resistance, only constant, graceful adaptation. By immersing ourselves in this environment, even briefly, we can learn to model that same adaptability in our own lives. So how do we transform a mundane stroll into a Stoic exercise? The key lies in intention. This isn't about getting your steps in or listening to a podcast. This is about using the walk as a moving meditation. Begin by leaving your headphones behind. The goal is not to block out the world, but to fully enter it. As you walk, engage your senses deliberately. Notice the feeling of the air on your skin. Is it cool or warm? Observe the quality of the light filtering through the leaves. Listen to the layered soundscape, from the distant hum of traffic to the close-up chatter of birds. When your mind inevitably drifts back to a work problem or a personal worry, gently guide it back to your sensory experience. You are practicing prosochē attention by anchoring yourself firmly in the present moment through your physical surroundings. You can also use this time for a more directed Stoic reflection. As you walk, you might contemplate the transience of all things. The flowers blooming by the path will wilt, the clouds overhead are continuously changing form, and even the path itself is being slowly worn down by countless footsteps, including your own. This isn't a morbid thought, it's a liberating one. It connects you to the universal truth of impermanence, helping to loosen the grip of attachment to things that are ultimately fleeting. Alternatively, you might reflect on your place within the vast network of life. The oxygen you breathe is a gift from the trees. The ground beneath your feet supports you without question. This fosters a profound sense of gratitude and interdependence, counteracting the isolated, self-centered mindset that so often leads to distress. This week, I invite you to experiment with this practice. Choose one day to take a 10-minute walk with this specific philosophical intention. It doesn't have to be in a pristine wilderness. A city park or even a tree-lined neighborhood street will do. Leave your devices behind. As you walk, alternate between simply observing your surroundings with all your senses and reflecting on a single Stoic idea, like impermanence or interconnectedness. Afterward, take just a moment to check in with yourself. Did your sense of time feel different? Did the problems that felt large and urgent 10 minutes ago seem to shrink back into a more manageable proportion? This simple act of walking with awareness can serve as a powerful reset button, clearing away mental clutter and offering a much-needed dose of perspective, exactly as the Stoics intended. But what if our relentless pursuit of comfort, that constant drive to make everything easier, warmer, and more convenient, is actually making us weaker? It's a provocative question, and one the Stoics would not only ask but wholeheartedly affirm. They believed that a life dedicated solely to avoiding discomfort was a life primed for fragility, because hardship is not a matter of if but when. The solution, in their view, was not to build a higher wall against adversity, but to voluntarily step outside our comfort zone on our own terms, in small ways, to build an inner fortitude that no external event could shatter. This is the profound practice of voluntary discomfort, a deliberate and strategic form of self-training that inoculates the soul against the inevitable shocks of fate. The Stoic teachers were remarkably direct about this. Musonius Rufus, a hugely influential teacher whose lectures were attended by even the young Epictetus, argued that comfort and luxury were the enemies of virtue. He stated plainly, we should accustom ourselves to a simple and modest diet, which is more in accord with nature and most conducive to health. This wasn't about austerity for its own sake, it was about preserving our freedom. His student Epictetus drove the point home with his characteristic force, advising his students to practice sometimes a way of living as if you were in hardship. Go without sleep, be content with little water and poor food. Why? So you will not be upset if hardship should ever come. For them, this was the ultimate form of preparation. It's the mental and emotional equivalent of a fire drill. You don't wait for the fire to learn the escape route. You practice it in safety so you're not paralyzed by panic when the real alarm sounds. This practice works on two powerful levels. First, it builds resilience by lowering your baseline of expectation. When you voluntarily experience a minor hardship like taking a cold shower or walking somewhere instead of driving, you are essentially sending a message to your deepest self. I can handle this. I am okay even when conditions are not perfectly ideal. Each time you do this, you chip away at the unconscious belief that you need constant comfort to be happy. You prove to yourself, through direct experience, that your well-being is not held hostage by external circumstances. The second profound effect is that it dramatically heightens your appreciation for the ordinary comforts you usually take for granted. That first sip of warm coffee after a morning of fasting, the bliss of a warm bed after a brief period of sleeping on a harder surface, these simple pleasures become sources of deep gratitude rather than expected entitlements. You stop taking the infrastructure of your modern life for granted. So what does this look like in a practical, modern sense? It doesn't mean selling all your possessions and sleeping on the floor. It's about small, intentional, and safe acts of self-denial. You might choose to take a cold shower for the final 60 seconds of your morning routine. The initial shock is a masterclass in embracing something unpleasant without fighting it, and the invigorating feeling afterwards is a bonus. You could decide to skip a single meal, not for dietary reasons, but to practice sitting with the sensation of hunger and realizing it is a temporary feeling, not an emergency. You might leave your phone at home during a short errand, voluntarily surrendering the convenience of constant connection to practice being present with your own thoughts. Or you could choose to walk to the store in slightly chilly weather without a jacket, just to feel the cold and know you can withstand it. The key is that the action is chosen, not forced upon you. That element of choice is what transforms it from a miserable event into an empowering exercise. This week, I want you to consider one small, safe, voluntary discomfort you could introduce into your life. It should be something minor, almost trivial. What would it be? Could you drink only water with a single meal instead of a preferred beverage? Could you turn off the heating in your car for a short drive on a cool day? The goal isn't to punish yourself, but to consciously step away from the default setting of maximum comfort just for a moment. After you try it, take a minute to reflect. What did you learn about your own capacity to handle minor inconvenience? Did it change your appreciation for the comfort you return to? This simple act of choosing a small hardship is a direct rebellion against a culture that tells us to seek ease at all times. It is a quiet, powerful declaration that your peace and resilience come from within, and that you are actively building a self that cannot be so easily unsettled by the unpredictable world. How often do we find ourselves in a conversation, nodding along while our minds are already crafting a response, rehearsing our next point, or even drifting to an entirely unrelated thought? It's a habit so ingrained in modern communication that we barely notice it. We listen to reply, not to understand. We treat conversation like a polite form of debate, waiting for our turn to speak rather than truly receiving what the other person is offering. The Stoics would see this not just as a social faux pas, but as a profound failure of attention and a missed opportunity to practice two of their core virtues, justice and kindness. For them, listening wasn't a passive activity, it was an active moral practice. Epictetus, who focused intensely on our duties in social life, highlighted the critical role of reason in our interactions. He taught that we must bring our full faculty of attention to bear on every situation, stating, "God has given me the power to understand and to choose, and to use my impressions correctly." Using our impressions correctly in a conversation means setting aside our own preconceptions and ego to fully attend to the person in front of us. This is just listening, giving someone the gift of your undivided attention, which is one of the most valuable and rare commodities in the world today. When we fail to listen mindfully, we are essentially failing to see the other person in their full humanity. We reduce them to a sounding board for our own ideas or an obstacle to our own goals. This is where the Stoic virtue of justice comes in. Justice, in the Stoic sense, is about giving each person their due, and what is more due to another human being than being seen and heard? It is an act of fundamental respect. Similarly, the virtue of kindness is expressed not through grand gestures, but through the simple, sustained effort of presence. It is a form of generosity to withhold your judgment, your advice, and your own story for a few moments to make space for someone else's. This kind of listening requires a quieting of the self, a temporary suspension of your own internal narrative to fully enter into the world of another. It is, in its own way, a small but powerful act of courage, the courage to be open, to be vulnerable to what you might hear, and to resist the urge to control or direct the conversation. Now, let's paint a clear picture of what this looks like in practice, because the difference is stark. Imagine a typical after-work conversation. In the distracted scenario, you're asking your partner about their day while simultaneously scrolling through your phone, glancing at the television, and mentally ticking through your own to-do list. You hear the words, but you miss the tone of frustration in their voice, the subtle sigh, the way their story reveals a deeper need for support or validation. Your response is generic, perhaps even misplaced, because you weren't truly present. The other person feels, on some level, unheard and diminished. Contrast that with a Stoic approach to the same conversation. You consciously put your phone away, out of sight. You turn your body to face them, making gentle eye contact. You are not just hearing their words, you are observing their body language, listening for the emotion behind the story. You resist the powerful urge to interrupt with a similar anecdote from your own day or to immediately offer a solution. Instead, you might simply ask, "And how did that make you feel?" Or, "What was that like for you?" You are fully there, not as a problem solver, but as a witness. This quality of attention is palpable. It communicates care and respect more eloquently than any words ever could. The conversation is no longer an exchange of data. It becomes a genuine connection. This level of engagement is a skill, and like any skill, it requires practice. It means battling against the constant pull of distraction, both external and internal. Your mind will wander, that's inevitable. The practice is in gently, without self-judgment, guiding your focus back to the person speaking. It's about noticing the impulse to formulate your response while they are still talking and consciously deciding to let that thought go, trusting that the right words will come when it is truly your turn to speak. This is the application of Epictetus's teaching. You are using your power of choice to direct your attention virtuously, so here is a direct challenge for you. Today, choose one single conversation. It could be with a coworker, a family member, or even a cashier, and make a conscious decision to practice mindful, stoic listening. For the duration of that interaction, let your only goal be to fully understand what the other person is communicating. Notice the urges that arise, to check your phone, to interrupt, to steer the topic. Acknowledge them and then let them pass. See if you can listen so completely that you could accurately summarize not just their words, but the feeling and intention behind them. Afterwards, take a moment to reflect on how that felt. Was the conversation deeper? Did you learn something new about the person? And perhaps most importantly, how did it feel to offer the radical gift of your complete and undivided attention? This one small act can transform an ordinary interaction into a profound practice of justice, kindness, and human connection. How often do we approach our most repetitive daily tasks with a sense of resentment, rushing through them as if they were obstacles standing between us and our real lives? We scrub a pot while mentally already at our desk, fold laundry while watching a show, or sweep the floor while rehearsing a difficult conversation we need to have later. In doing so, we unconsciously relegate huge chunks of our lives to the category of time to be endured rather than time to be lived. The Stoics would argue that this mental division is where we go astray. They proposed a radical alternative, that there are no insignificant actions, only actions performed with an insignificant amount of attention. Every single thing we do, no matter how small or routine, is an opportunity to practice virtue and presence. It is in the mundane, not in the monumental, that our character is most consistently forged. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in the world, constantly reminded himself of this truth. In his private journal, he wrote, "No role is so well suited to philosophy as the one you happen to be in right now." And in another passage, he advised himself to find satisfaction in even the smallest present act, and let the quality of that action be your reward. For an emperor, this could have meant giving his full attention to reviewing a provincial tax code or listening to the petition of a common citizen. For us, it means applying that same imperial focus to wiping a countertop or organizing a closet. The Stoic goal is to erase the artificial hierarchy we create between important and unimportant tasks. If an action is worth doing at all, it is worth doing with your whole self, because the way you do anything is ultimately the way you do everything. Your attention is the thread of virtue that can weave through every moment, making even the most ordinary fabric of your day shimmer with purpose. Let's make this concrete with an example you know well: washing dishes. In the common approach, it's a chore. You might rush through it, your hands moving on autopilot while your mind is anywhere but at the sink. You're focused on finishing, on getting to the next thing. The experience is one of mild impatience and disconnection. Now, apply the Stoic now focus. You approach the sink deliberately. You feel the warmth of the water on your skin, notice the slick texture of the soap suds, and observe the way the light reflects off a clean plate. You give care to each motion, not because the dishes demand it, but because you demand it of yourself. You are practicing the virtues of thoroughness, care, and patience. The goal shifts from simply having clean dishes to cleaning the dishes well with presence. This transforms the entire activity from a burden into a meditation. The same applies to folding laundry. Instead of seeing a pile of clothes, you can see an opportunity to practice order and care for your possessions. Each fold can be a deliberate, almost graceful act of bringing order from chaos. You are not just preparing clothes for tomorrow, you are practicing the art of tidying your own mind, one folded shirt at a time. This practice is about reclaiming your attention from the future and planting it firmly in the present. The repetitive task becomes an anchor. When you feel your mind start to wander to past regrets or future anxieties, the physical sensation of the warm water or the simple, repetitive motion of folding gives you something real to return to. It's a form of active meditation that requires no special cushion or quiet room, just a shift in intention. You begin to discover a strange paradox. By fully immersing yourself in the task you once considered boring, you find that the boredom itself disappears, replaced by a quiet, focused engagement. The task itself hasn't changed, but your relationship to it has been completely revolutionized. You are no longer serving the task is serving you, providing a structured opportunity to practice the Stoic arts of presence and unwavering attention. Tomorrow, I want you to conduct a simple experiment. Choose one repetitive, mundane task that you normally rush through. It could be washing those dishes, making your bed, raking leaves, or even something as simple as brushing your teeth. For the duration of that one task, make a conscious decision to do it with your full and complete attention. Feel the physical sensations, notice the details of your movements, and when your mind inevitably tries to pull you away into planning or worrying, gently guide it back to the simple reality of the action in front of you. Don't do it to get it over with, do it to do it. Afterwards, take a moment to reflect. Did the task feel longer or shorter? Did you find any unexpected satisfaction in the rhythm or the result? This isn't about becoming a perfect housekeeper. It's about discovering the hidden potential for mindfulness and meaning woven into the very fabric of your ordinary day. What if the most powerful tool for reducing daily anxiety wasn't positive thinking, but its exact opposite? This is where we come to one of the most misunderstood yet profoundly practical Stoic exercises, Premeditatio Malorum, which translates to the premeditation of evils. At first glance, imagining everything that could go wrong in your day sounds like a recipe for stress, a descent into pessimism. But the Stoics, particularly Seneca, saw it as the ultimate mental vaccine against the shocks of fortune, a way to inoculate the mind against anxiety by exposing it to controlled doses of adversity in advance. Seneca beautifully framed this practice not as dwelling on the dark, but as a method to appreciate the light, writing, "He who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive." This is the core of the idea. Anxiety thrives on the unknown, on the sudden and unexpected. By removing the element of surprise, we drain fear of its power and reclaim a sense of calm preparedness. The mechanism at work here is psychological inoculation. Just as a vaccine introduces a weakened virus to train the immune system, Premeditatio Malorum introduces a controlled version of potential problems to train your emotional resilience. When you vividly imagine a specific challenge, your computer crashing before a big presentation, getting critical feedback on a project, or getting caught in a downpour on your way to an event, you are not cursing yourself with bad luck. You are conducting a cognitive rehearsal. Your brain starts to process the event as a possibility rather than a catastrophe. It begins to problem solve in the background, generating potential responses and pathways forward. Then, if that event actually occurs, it feels familiar. The initial jolt of panic is replaced by a calmer, almost déjà vu-like recognition. You've already been here in your mind, and you already have a map. This practice also works a second, equally beautiful magic. It dramatically heightens your appreciation for when things go smoothly. By consciously considering the absence of your comforts and conveniences, you suddenly see them not as entitlements but as gifts. That your car started, that the meeting went without a hitch, that the sun is shining, these become active points of gratitude rather than passive expectations. Let's translate this from ancient philosophy into a modern morning routine. Imagine you have a crucial meeting scheduled for 2 p.m. with a new client. The standard approach is to hope for the best, walk in with your prepared materials, and react to whatever happens. The Stoic approach, employing Premeditation Malorum, happens earlier in the day. You take just 90 seconds to close your eyes and run a mental simulation. You ask yourself, what could realistically go wrong? The video conferencing software might fail. The client might be distracted and disengaged. They might immediately challenge your proposed budget or even be openly hostile to the ideas you're most excited about. You don't just list these things, you sit with each one for a moment. If the software fails, what's my backup? I have the phone number ready to dial in instantly. If the client is distracted, how will I re-engage them? I'll ask a direct, open-ended question to bring them back into the conversation. If they attack the budget, how will I respond? I'll calmly restate the value and be prepared to discuss alternatives. This isn't worry, it's strategic preparation. You are drafting a playbook for potential adversity, so you're not forced to write it in the heat of the moment. This practice can be applied to virtually any planned event, large or small. Before a family gathering, you might briefly consider that a relative could bring up a contentious political topic. You mentally rehearse responding with grace and changing the subject, rather than being caught off guard and reacting defensively. Before a day trip, you might imagine a flat tire or a sudden change in the weather, ensuring you've packed a jacket and checked your spare tire. The goal is never to spiral into imagining ever-worsening scenarios. It's to briefly touch on realistic obstacles, acknowledge their possibility, and affirm your ability to handle them. You are proving to yourself that your peace of mind does not depend on everything going perfectly according to plan. Your equanimity is built on the sturdier foundation of your own adaptability and resourcefulness. I want you to try this today. Bring to mind one single event on your calendar for the coming days. It doesn't have to be a major source of stress. It could be something as simple as a drive across town or a coffee with a friend. Now set a timer for 2 minutes. In that time, allow yourself to envision 2 or 3 realistic things that could go differently than you hope. For each one, mentally outline a single, calm step you could take in response. Notice how it feels to have a plan. Does it make the event feel more manageable? Does it lessen the underlying fear of the unknown? This small act of negative visualization is not about expecting the worst. It's about being prepared for it, and in doing so, freeing yourself to fully enjoy the best when it arrives. Think about the last time you received some unexpected criticism, or some piece of bad news landed in your lap. What happened in that first second? For most of us, the reaction is instantaneous, a flash of heat in the face, a tightening in the chest, a defensive thought already forming on our tongue. It feels so automatic, so wired into our system, that we assume this is just how it is. But the Stoics, and Epictetus in particular, unveiled a radical secret hidden within that tiny space between the event and our response. He taught that men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. The event itself is neutral. It's our immediate, unconscious judgment about the event, the story we tell ourselves about what it means, that generates the emotional whirlwind. The power to choose our response doesn't lie in changing the event. It lies in inserting a conscious pause to examine that initial judgment before we give it our full assent. This is the essence of the Stoic pause. It's the deliberate creation of a buffer zone between the stimulus and your reaction, a momentary sanctuary where your reason can catch up to your reflexes. Epictetus gave his students a precise formula for this practice, advising them to say to every troubling impression, "You are just an impression and not at all the thing you pretend to be." Then he said, examine it, test it, and only then decide whether to accept it as true. That first flash of anger when you're criticized isn't the truth. It's just an impression, a raw signal that needs to be interpreted. The pause is where you become the interpreter instead of the instrument. You are moving from a state of being passively acted upon by the world to actively engaging with it through your faculty of choice. This tiny gap is where your freedom truly lies. Let's make this incredibly practical. Imagine your boss emails you with feedback on a project, and one line reads, "This section seems a bit rushed and underdeveloped." The automatic, non-stoic reaction might be a surge of defensiveness. Your heart rate jumps. You might immediately fire back a justification, or you might slump into a mood of dejection for the next hour, telling yourself a story about being unappreciated. Now apply the Stoic pause. You read the line and feel that familiar jolt, but instead of letting that feeling dictate your next action, you create space. You close your eyes for just 3 seconds and take one deep, conscious breath. In that space, you apply Epictetus's teaching. You label the impression. This is a feeling of defensiveness arising from my judgment that this criticism is a personal attack. You test it. Is that true? Is the goal of this feedback to attack me or to improve the project? Is there any useful data here I can use? By pausing, you've downgraded the event from a crisis to a piece of information. Your response can now be chosen from a place of calm. You might reply with, "Thanks for pointing that out. Could you help me understand what felt underdeveloped so I can improve it?" The outcome is entirely different because the process began with a pause. This practice transforms conflicts, both big and small. Your partner says something that feels dismissive. The automatic reaction is to snap back with a similarly sharp remark, escalating the tension. The Stoic pause means feeling the hurt, but then consciously choosing to ask a question instead. When you said that, it felt a bit dismissive. Did you mean it that way? This isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about allowing reason to partner with it so your response is measured and virtuous. You're not avoiding the conversation, you're ensuring it's productive. The pause can be physically signaled by something as simple as taking a sip of water, adjusting your posture, or even literally counting to 3. The action itself is less important than the intention behind it, to break the chain of automatic reactivity and reclaim authority over your next move. This week, you will undoubtedly experience a strong emotional trigger. It might be a frustrating commute, a perceived slight, or a sudden change of plans. When you feel that familiar surge, that heat of anger, the cold clutch of anxiety, the prick of irritation, I want you to see it not as a command to act, but as a signal to pause. Just for a moment, don't try to stop the feeling, just notice it, label it to yourself. This is anger. Then take one full breath. In the space of that breath, ask yourself Epictetus's question. Is this impression true? Is my initial judgment about this event serving me? You don't need to find a perfect answer. The power is in the asking itself, in the act of creating that tiny gap between the world's action and your own. That gap is the birthplace of your character. How often do you truly stop to appreciate what you have, not as a fleeting thought, but as a deliberate act of recognition? In the relentless pursuit of what we lack, the next achievement, the newer possession, the ideal circumstance, we often blind ourselves to the abundance that already exists in our ordinary lives. This constant state of wanting is a primary source of that lingering dissatisfaction that colors our days. The Stoics, however, wielded a powerful antidote to this pervasive sense of lack: the intentional, disciplined practice of gratitude. For them, it was far more than a positive emotion. It was a cognitive tool, a form of mental hygiene used to scrub away the grime of complaint and entitlement, revealing a clearer perspective on the true nature of their fortune. Marcus Aurelius, despite the immense weight of leading an empire through war and plague, was perhaps its most dedicated practitioner. His personal journal, Meditations, is filled with explicit lists of gratitude, not directed at some abstract concept, but towards specific people and qualities. He wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." And in another passage, he meticulously thanks his grandfather for teaching him good character, his father for his modesty and manliness, his mother for her piety and generosity, and even his tutors for specific lessons. This wasn't sentimental reminiscing. It was a rigorous exercise in perspective-taking, a way to anchor himself in the reality of his blessings before facing the uncertainties of the day. This practice is a direct application of the core Stoic principle of focusing on what is within our control. While we cannot control external events or guarantee future prosperity, we have absolute command over how we choose to view our current circumstances. Gratitude is the conscious decision to focus on what is present and good, rather than what is absent and desired. It is the ultimate rebellion against the tyranny of more. When you actively catalog your blessings, you are performing a reality check against a mind that naturally gravitates towards problems and threats. You are essentially arguing with your own dissatisfaction, presenting evidence of comfort, support, and beauty that your stressed mind had conveniently filed away. Marcus didn't wait to feel grateful. He acted grateful through his reflections, knowing the feeling would follow the action. He understood that a grateful mind is a resilient mind because it is rooted in a sense of enoughness, making it less vulnerable to the sharp edges of misfortune. Integrating this into the frantic pace of a modern day might seem challenging, but its power lies in its simplicity. You don't need a dedicated hour of meditation. The goal is to weave micro moments of gratitude into the existing fabric of your routine, creating what we might call gratitude pauses. One profoundly effective method is to set a gentle reminder on your phone for 2 or 3 different times during the day, perhaps mid-morning, right after lunch, and right before you begin your evening commute. When the alert goes off, your task is not to drop everything, but to simply bring your attention to the present and mentally note 3 specific things you are grateful for in that very moment. The specificity is key. It's not just "I'm grateful for my family," but "I'm grateful for the funny text my partner sent me this morning that made me laugh." It's not just "I'm grateful for my job," but "I'm grateful for the warm cup of coffee on my desk and the fact that my computer is working properly." This practice forces you out of the abstract and into the tangible, grounding you in the real, available goodness of your immediate experience. The effects of this practice are often immediate and tangible. That stressful project deadline hasn't changed, but taking a 60-second gratitude pause can shift your entire emotional landscape from one of burden to one of capability. You move from "I have so much to do" to "I have the skills and the resources to handle this." You might feel gratitude for the chair that supports your back, the sunlight coming through the window, or simply the ability to think clearly. This isn't about denying difficulty. It's about building a foundation of appreciation that makes the difficulties feel more manageable. it directly alters your perception of time itself. A day punctuated by gratitude pauses feels richer and more substantive because you have actively inserted moments of recognition and meaning into the flow of hours. You are no longer just moving from task to task. You are collecting evidence of a life worth living along the way. Today, I invite you to run a personal experiment. Don't make it a grand commitment. Simply choose one moment, maybe during your afternoon slump, or while you're waiting for the kettle to boil, to institute your own gratitude pause. Stop what you're doing, take one deep breath, and ask yourself, what are 3 specific things I can be grateful for right now? They can be profound or seemingly trivial. Notice the feeling that arises as you do this. Does the weight on your shoulders feel a fraction lighter? Does the room you're in seem a little brighter? This small act is a direct line to the Stoic goal of cultivating an inner citadel of peace, built not on everything going right, but on your ability to recognize the things that already are. Consider for a moment the sheer volume of tiny choices you navigate in a single day. What to wear, what to eat for breakfast, which task to tackle first, how to respond to an email, whether to buy that item on sale, what to watch in the evening. The list is virtually endless. This constant, low-level churn of decision-making has a very real cost, a psychological phenomenon known as decision fatigue. Every choice, no matter how small, depletes a slice of your finite mental energy, leaving you with less willpower and focus for the decisions that truly matter. The Stoics identified this drain centuries ago and developed a brilliantly elegant solution. They didn't try to make better decisions about everything. They instead reduced the number of decisions they needed to make by building their lives upon a foundation of unwavering core values. Their goal wasn't to optimize every choice for maximum pleasure or convenience, but to simplify life by ensuring every choice, big or small, was a reflection of virtue. This is where the profound wisdom of Epictetus becomes our guide. He instructed his students to rigorously examine their desires and aversions, asking, "For if you desire any of the things which are not in your own control, you must necessarily be disappointed, and of those which are, and which it would be laudable to desire, nothing is yet in your possession." His point was that much of our decision-making chaos stems from desiring things that are ultimately outside our control, like external validation, specific outcomes, or the latest trends. We choose clothes to impress others, buy things to keep up with neighbors, and say yes to requests to avoid disapproval. This turns every decision into a complex calculus of external opinions rather than a simple alignment with internal principles. The Stoic alternative is to shift the entire basis of your choices. Instead of asking, "What do I want?" or "What will people think?" you train yourself to ask a different set of questions rooted in the 4 cardinal virtues. Is this wise? Is this just? Is this courageous? Is this temperate? Let's translate this into the tangible fabric of your daily life. Take the simple act of deciding what to wear. The modern approach might involve considering the weather, the occasion, what's clean, what's fashionable, and what might elicit compliments. It's a 5-minute mental negotiation every morning. The Stoic approach, guided by virtue, simplifies this immensely. The primary virtue here is temperance or moderation. Your question becomes, what is practical, functional, and sufficient for today's needs? Your wardrobe itself might become simpler, a limited palette of versatile, durable items that you like, eliminating the daily struggle. The decision is no longer about identity or status, it's about need and function. You've removed the external pressure and reduced the choice to its virtuous core. Apply this same lens to what you eat. The modern world offers endless dietary choices, often driven by impulse, craving, or emotional need. The Stoic, practicing temperance and wisdom, asks, What will nourish my body and support my health to perform its functions well? This doesn't mean eating bland food without enjoyment. It means choosing food for its purpose, to fuel a life of virtue rather than as a fleeting source of pleasure or comfort. The decision becomes clearer, faster, and far less burdensome. Now consider a larger decision like a purchase. The impulsive mind sees a sale and thinks, "I want it, it's a good deal." The Stoic mind, employing justice and wisdom, asks a series of virtue-based questions. Do I need this or merely want it? Is this purchase just? Does it represent a fair use of my resources? Or will it deprive my family or future self of something more important? Would I be content without it? This process acts as a filter, instantly eliminating a vast number of potential choices that don't align with your deeper principles. The incredible result of this value-based filtering is a dramatic conservation of mental energy. You are no longer starting from scratch with every decision, weighing a million pros and cons. You have a pre-established ethical framework that does the heavy lifting for you. What to do with the time and mental clarity you save? You can invest it in the things the Stoics valued most: deepening your relationships, engaging in meaningful work, and pursuing wisdom. Your life becomes less cluttered with trivial choices and more focused on purposeful action. You move through your days with a greater sense of agency and calm, because your compass is set to true north, virtue, rather than spinning to follow every passing trend or opinion. I want you to try on this framework for size. Look at your upcoming day or week and identify one single area where you consistently feel decision fatigue. Maybe it's planning meals, managing your inbox, or deciding how to spend your free time in the evening. Now apply the Stoic filter. For that one area, what would it look like to make choices based solely on the virtues of wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance? If it's your inbox, justice might mean responding to others promptly and clearly, while temperance might mean checking it only at designated times instead of constantly. If it's your free time, courage might mean choosing a productive activity you've been avoiding over passive entertainment. By narrowing your decision-making criteria to these 4 pillars, you simplify the entire process and ensure your energy is spent on what truly builds a good life. In a world that constantly buzzes with notifications, background music, and the relentless hum of digital chatter, silence has become one of our most rare and precious resources. We often treat it like an emptiness to be filled, a void that makes us uncomfortable. But the Stoics understood something we've largely forgotten: that silence is not empty, it is full of answers. It is in the quiet spaces that we can finally hear our own thoughts, separate from the echoes of the crowd. Seneca, in his profound letters, championed this deliberate withdrawal, writing, "You must withdraw into yourself as far as possible and associate with people who are likely to improve you. Welcome those whom you are capable of improving." The process is mutual, for people learn while they teach. His advice to withdraw wasn't about becoming a hermit, but about creating the necessary mental distance to remember who you are when no one is watching, judging, or demanding your attention. This is where true resilience is forged, not in the noisy battles of the external world, but in the quiet fortification of the inner one. The Stoic practice of seeking solitude was a form of strategic retreat, a way to strengthen your inner citadel so you could engage with the world from a place of strength rather than reactivity. Think of your mind as a lake. When the wind is constantly whipping up waves, the opinions of others, the latest news cycle, the endless to-do list, the water becomes murky and unsettled. You can't see your own reflection clearly. Silence is the calm that allows the sediment to settle, restoring clarity and transparency. It's in this state that you can conduct the most honest audit of your judgments, your desires, and your actions. Without the external noise to blame or hide behind, you come face to face with yourself. This can be uncomfortable at first, which is why we so often avoid it. But it is also the only path to genuine self-knowledge and the unshakable peace that comes from being aligned with your own virtues, not the virtues the world tries to impose upon you. Integrating this into a modern life might seem daunting, but it can begin with something astonishingly simple. Commit to just 5 minutes of pure, uninterrupted silence each day. This isn't 5 minutes of meditation with a guided app or listening to calming music. This is 5 minutes with no input whatsoever, no podcast, no scrolling, no reading, no background television. You can sit comfortably, you can gaze out a window, or you can even go for a slow walk without any headphones. The only rule is that you allow your own mind to be the only thing you listen to. You will likely be amazed at how challenging this can feel initially. The mind, accustomed to constant stimulation, might rebel with a frantic parade of thoughts, worries, and mental chatter. The practice isn't to stop this parade, but to simply sit on the curb and watch it pass by without getting swept away. You are not trying to achieve a blank mind. You are practicing the art of being a gentle, non-judgmental observer of your own inner world. Over time, these small daily investments in silence compound into remarkable returns. You begin to notice a growing space between your triggers and your responses, even in the middle of a hectic day. The calm you cultivate in those quiet minutes becomes a resource you can draw upon, a well of patience you didn't have before. You might find that solutions to problems you've been wrestling with suddenly appear in the stillness, or that a sense of gratitude for simple things emerges naturally. This practice is the ultimate declaration that your worth and your peace are not dependent on external validation or constant doing. They are inherent, and silence is simply the method you use to remember that truth, to reconnect with the steady, unwavering core of yourself that exists beneath all the noise. I encourage you to treat this not as another task, but as an experiment. Sometime today or tomorrow, find a way to gift yourself 5 minutes of true silence. It could be first thing in the morning before anyone else is awake, or in your car after you've parked it, or in a quiet corner of a park. Set a timer if you need to, and just be. Don't strive for any particular outcome. Simply notice what arises: the restlessness, the boredom, the sudden clarity, the fleeting memory, the simple breath. There is no wrong way to experience it. The only goal is to show up for yourself in the quiet and see what you discover when you finally give your own inner voice the floor. What if the very tasks you dread the most, the sink full of dishes, the mountain of laundry, the dusty floors, could become your most reliable source of daily calm and focus? We often frame chores as the boring, meaningless background noise of our lives, obstacles to be rushed through so we can get to the important stuff. But this mindset completely misses the hidden potential lying dormant in these routine actions. The Stoics would urge us to see these moments differently, not as drudgery to be escaped, but as a perfect training ground for the very virtues we seek to cultivate. Marcus Aurelius, a man who commanded legions, constantly reminded himself of the profound value inherent in the smallest of actions. He wrote in his Meditations, "No role is so well suited to philosophy as the one you happen to be in right now." And in another passage, he advised himself to perform every task as if it were the last thing you were doing in your life, to do it with full attention and without distraction. For an emperor, this could mean giving his complete focus to matters of state. For us, it means applying that same imperial focus to scrubbing a pot or folding a shirt. This is the heart of turning chores into a meditative practice. It's about shifting your intention from simply finishing the task to fully immersing yourself in the process of doing it. You are no longer cleaning to have a clean kitchen. You are cleaning to practice the act of cleaning itself with care, presence, and excellence. This transforms the chore from a means to an end into an end in itself, a form of active meditation where the rhythm of your movements and the focus on sensory details becomes an anchor to the present moment. Think of it as a moving mindfulness exercise. Instead of your mind racing ahead to your next meeting or replaying a past conversation, it is fully engaged with the feeling of warm, soapy water on your hands, the sound of the bristles against a pan, the visual satisfaction of watching chaos become order. You are practicing the Stoic art of prosochē, vigilant attention, by tethering your wandering mind to the simple, physical reality right in front of you. Let's make this practical with a clear example. Imagine you're facing a counter covered in dinner dishes. The common approach is to see it as a nuisance. You might rush through it, your body on autopilot while your mind is already miles away, thinking about tomorrow's workload or a show you want to watch later. The experience is one of impatience and mental absence. Now apply the Stoic method. You approach the sink deliberately. You feel the temperature of the water as you adjust it, noticing the sensation on your skin. You pick up a sponge, observing the texture and the way the soap suds blossom. You wash each dish with deliberate care, giving attention to every curve and corner, not because the dish demands it, but because you are practicing the virtues of thoroughness and care. You are fully present for the entire act. The goal is no longer to be done, but to be fully engaged in the doing. The same applies to folding laundry. Instead of seeing it as a monotonous pile, you can see it as an opportunity to practice order and gratitude. With each fold, you can appreciate the utility of the garment, the fact that you have clothes to wear, and you can take satisfaction in creating neat, organized stacks. You are not just preparing for tomorrow, you are practicing the art of bringing order to chaos, both externally and internally. This practice is incredibly powerful because it reclaims time we normally write off as wasted. Those 20 minutes spent doing dishes are no longer a lost 20 minutes. They become 20 minutes of mental training. You are building your capacity for focus, training yourself to resist the pull of distraction, and cultivating a sense of inner calm that isn't dependent on external circumstances. The chore becomes a sanctuary from the noise, a structured activity that requires just enough of your attention to keep you grounded in the present, but not so much that it becomes stressful. You may even begin to discover a strange and beautiful satisfaction in these tasks, finding a quiet joy in the rhythm and the tangible results of your efforts. The gleaming countertop or the neatly organized drawer becomes not just a practical outcome, but a physical manifestation of your own practiced attention and care. This week, I invite you to conduct a simple experiment in Stoic mindfulness. Choose one household chore that you normally dislike or rush through. It could be vacuuming, taking out the recycling, or wiping down the bathroom surfaces. The next time you do it, make a conscious decision to change your approach. Before you begin, take one deep breath and set a clear intention. For the next 10 or 15 minutes, your only job is to do this one task with your full and complete attention. Engage your senses fully. Notice the smells, the textures, the sounds. When your mind inevitably wanders, as it will, gently guide it back to the physical sensations of the task. Don't do it to get it over with. Do it to practice being right where you are. Afterwards, take a moment to reflect. How did that feel compared to your usual way of doing it? Did the time pass differently? Did you find any unexpected sliver of peace or satisfaction in the process? This isn't about becoming a perfect housekeeper. It's about discovering the hidden potential for mindfulness and meaning in the most ordinary corners of your day. History offers us something far more valuable than just dates and events. It provides a timeless library of human resilience, a collection of souls who have faced every conceivable form of adversity and left behind a map of how they navigated it. The Stoics understood that we don't have to face our struggles alone, even across the vast expanse of centuries. They actively sought out exemplars, historical and contemporary figures who embodied virtue to serve as both inspiration and a practical measuring stick for their own character. When faced with a difficult choice, a Stoic wouldn't just ask, "What should I do?" They would ask, "What would Cato do in this situation?" Or, "How would Socrates respond?" This wasn't about blind hero worship. It was about using these paragons of virtue as a North Star, a constant reminder that a life of principle and courage is not only possible but has been lived by real people facing real, often terrifying challenges. Marcus Aurelius, perhaps the most powerful man in his world, constantly engaged in this practice within the pages of his private journal. Surrounded by war, political betrayal, and personal loss, he would reflect on the transience of all things to ground himself. He wrote, "Think of the whole of existence of which you are the tiniest part. Think of the whole of time in which you have been assigned a brief and fleeting moment. Think of destiny, what a small fraction of that you are." In another passage, he reflects on the endless parade of famous figures from history, noting that they are all long forgotten, their triumphs and tragedies reduced to dust. This wasn't a morbid fixation, it was a tool for gaining immense perspective. By zooming out to the scale of history, his immediate troubles, a difficult senator, a stubborn general, a painful illness shrank to their proper size. He was reminding himself that his current crisis, no matter how all-consuming it felt, was just one more ripple in the vast river of time, no different from the challenges faced by countless others before him. To make this concrete, let's consider the Stoic figure of Cato the Younger. Cato was a Roman senator who lived during the fall of the Republic, a time of immense corruption and civil war. His defining principle was an unwavering commitment to justice and the Roman constitution, even when it put him in direct opposition to powerful figures like Julius Caesar. When Caesar ultimately won the civil war, establishing himself as a dictator, Cato faced a choice that would define him for all of history. He could swear allegiance to Caesar, live a comfortable life of privilege, and likely hold a high position in the new regime. Or he could refuse to live under a tyranny, choosing to end his own life as a final, powerful act of defiance in the name of Republican liberty. He chose the latter. Now, you and I will almost certainly never face a choice of that literal life and death magnitude, but we face Cato's dilemma in spirit all the time. We face it when we're pressured to compromise our integrity for a promotion, to stay silent on an important issue to avoid social conflict, or to go along with a group decision that we know in our hearts is wrong. Cato's example asks us a simple, piercing question. What principles are you willing to uphold, even when it's inconvenient, unpopular, or comes with a real cost? His story is not a manual for suicide, it's a manual for moral courage. We can also look to Socrates, who the Stoics revered as the ultimate philosophical martyr. Sentenced to death by the Athenian state on trumped-up charges of corrupting the youth and impiety, Socrates was given a clear opportunity to escape. His friends had bribed the guards and arranged for his flight into exile, but Socrates refused. He argued that to flee would be to violate the social contract he had benefited from his entire life. Even though the verdict was unjust, escaping the punishment would be an unjust act in return. He chose to drink the hemlock and die, not because he wanted to, but because living a life that was inconsistent with his own principles was a far worse fate. How does this relate to a modern stressor? Think about the times we are tempted to take the easy way out, to tell a white lie to avoid consequences, to blame someone else for our mistake, or to cut a corner we know we shouldn't. Socrates' example shines a light on that moment of choice. He asks us to consider the long-term cost to our character versus the short-term comfort of avoidance. Living with the knowledge that we acted without integrity, he would argue, is a slower, more insidious poison than any consequence we might face for telling the truth. So I want to offer you a different way to use history, a Stoic exercise in perspective-taking. Bring to mind a current worry or stressor that feels significant to you right now. It might be a financial pressure, a conflict at work, a health concern, or anxiety about a future event. Now, I want you to mentally project that worry onto the stage of history. Imagine explaining this problem to Marcus Aurelius as his legions battled a plague and Germanic tribes on the frontier. Picture describing your stressful work deadline to Cato as he decided whether to betray Rome for his life. Envision sharing your social anxieties with Socrates as he sat in his cell, preparing to die for his beliefs. From their vantage point, how might they view your concern? This isn't to minimize your experience or say your feelings aren't valid. It is to provide a powerful dose of context. It's likely they would acknowledge the difficulty while gently pointing out that your character, your virtue, and your ability to choose a reasoned response are what truly matter, not the outcome of the event itself. This shift doesn't make the problem disappear, but it can drain the panic from it, leaving behind only the challenge itself, ready to be met with clarity and courage. Contemplating our own mortality might seem like a morbid, even frightening exercise, something we instinctively shy away from in our culture that often treats death as a distant, abstract concept to be ignored. But for the Stoics, this practice was the very opposite of morbid. It was the most profoundly practical and life-affirming tool they possessed. They called it Memento Mori, a Latin phrase that translates to "remember you must die." This was not a call to live in fear or sadness, but a powerful mental technique to ignite a sense of urgency, clarity, and deep appreciation for the life we have right now. The Stoic philosopher Seneca, in his penetrating letters, put it with characteristic bluntness, writing, "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire." He saw that we fritter away our days as if we had an endless supply of them, postponing what matters for a future that is never guaranteed. His remedy was to hold the finite nature of life firmly in mind, stating, "He who enjoys a good life is not the one who has lived long, but the one who has understood life well." For Seneca, understanding life well began with understanding its inevitable end, because that end is what gives our time its staggering value. The purpose of Memento Mori is to function as a reality check, a philosophical cold splash of water to wake us from the slumber of routine and distraction. When we operate under the unconscious assumption that we have all the time in the world, it's easy to get lost in trivial pursuits, to hold grudges, to procrastinate on our deepest goals, and to sacrifice our present moments for a hazy future. Remembering that our time is limited and precious shocks us out of that complacency. It forces a radical prioritization. Suddenly, the argument you had with your partner seems less significant. The fear of starting that new project feels smaller. The urge to scroll mindlessly through your phone feels like a tragic waste of a finite resource. The Stoics used this reflection to sharpen their focus on the present, understanding that the past is gone and the future is uncertain. All we truly ever have is this current moment. By remembering death, they were not dwelling on the end. They were being called back to the beginning, to the raw, simple privilege of being alive and the responsibility to use that life well, in alignment with virtue. Integrating this practice into your daily life doesn't require dark meditation or macabre rituals. It can be as simple as a brief mental note during your morning intentionality practice. As you set your goals for the day, you might pause and ask, if this were my last day, would I be proud of how I plan to spend it? This isn't meant to inspire a frantic bucket list frenzy, but to instill a sense of purposeful alignment. Would you choose to spend your final hours anxiously refreshing your email? Or would you choose to connect deeply with your family, work on something meaningful, or simply sit quietly and appreciate the beauty of the world? This question acts as a filter, instantly separating the trivial from the essential. You can also use Memento Mori at decision points. Faced with a significant choice, a career change, a difficult conversation, a major purchase, the remembrance of death can provide incredible clarity. It strips away the superficial concerns of what others might think or the fear of failure and brings you back to your core values. What path would you choose if you knew your time was short? That is almost certainly the path most aligned with your authentic self. This practice ultimately transforms your relationship with time itself. Instead of seeing time as an enemy to be managed or an infinite resource to be spent carelessly, you begin to see it as a sacred gift to be invested with intention. A day becomes not just another unit on a calendar, but a genuine opportunity to act with kindness, to create something beautiful, to learn something new, to love openly. The ticking clock is no longer a source of anxiety, but a gentle, constant reminder to be fully present and to pour your best self into everything you do. The shadow of mortality, when embraced, does not darken life. It illuminates it, making every color brighter, every conversation richer, and every ordinary moment shimmer with potential meaning. So I offer you this challenge not as a somber thought experiment, but as an invitation to greater vitality. Sometime today, find a quiet moment to sincerely ask yourself Seneca's question, if today were my last, how would I choose to spend it? Let the answers that arise guide not toward drastic, one-time actions, but toward subtle shifts in your priorities and attention. Would you call someone you love? Would you finally forgive that old grievance? Would you step outside and feel the sun on your face with genuine gratitude? Let this reflection be a compass, pointing you relentlessly toward what is true, what is meaningful, and what is genuinely yours to hold onto in the brief and beautiful span of your existence. Notice how a simple traffic jam or a long line at the grocery store can instantly transform your mood from calm to agitated, as if that delay is a personal offense against your schedule. This automatic reaction of impatience doesn't just make the wait feel longer, it actively amplifies our stress, layering frustration on top of an already inconvenient situation. The Stoics would point to this very moment as a critical error in judgment, not because the delay is enjoyable, but because our resistance to it creates a secondary layer of suffering that is entirely of our own making. They taught that events themselves are neutral. It is our heated opinions about them, our belief that things should be different, that truly disturb our peace. The practice, then, is to consciously withdraw that judgment, to stop arguing with reality, and to accept the natural, unpredictable flow of events without adding our own internal commentary of complaint. This is the heart of cultivating patience. It's not about passively waiting, but about actively choosing how to relate to the time you are given. Epictetus, who knew more than most about enduring circumstances beyond his control, offered a startlingly powerful frame for this practice. He advised his students to seek not for events to happen as you wish, but wish for events to happen as they do, and your life will go well. And in perhaps an even more direct command, he said, Accept the events that fate determines for you as you would accept food from a host at a banquet. Take what is served and make the best of it. This isn't about being a doormat or giving up on planning. It's about recognizing the fundamental distinction between what we can influence and what we cannot. The delay itself is firmly in the category of things not up to us. Our response to it, however, is entirely within our domain. By accepting the event as if we had chosen it ourselves, we perform a profound act of mental alchemy. We transform an external obstacle into an internal training opportunity, a chance to strengthen our patience and our resolve to remain steady no matter what the world serves up. Think about a common modern scenario, a flight delay. You're sitting at the gate and the screen updates with a new departure time that adds 2 hours to your wait. The automatic reaction is a surge of frustration. You might sigh loudly, complain to a travel companion, or start mentally calculating all the connections and appointments you'll now miss. Your body tenses, your mind races, and the 2 hours stretch out before you as a barren wasteland of wasted time. Now apply the Stoic shift. The delay has happened. This is the reality. Fighting it is as useful as shaking your fist at the sky because it started to rain. Instead, you take a breath and accept the new timeline. You now have 2 unexpected hours. How can you use them well? This becomes your new focus, a problem within your control. Perhaps you use the time to finally read that book you brought, or to observe the fascinating cross-section of humanity in the terminal, or to plan the first day of your trip in greater detail. You might even use it for a brief meditation on patience itself. The delay hasn't changed, but your experience of it has been completely transformed from a source of stress to a pocket of potential. This same principle applies to the countless smaller waits that populate our days: the long queue at the coffee shop, the hold music on a customer service call, the slow-moving line of traffic. Each one is a miniature classroom for practicing acceptance. Instead of pulling out your phone to numb the impatience, you could choose to simply be in the wait. Feel your feet on the floor, notice the rhythm of your breath, and observe your surroundings with detached curiosity. You are using the delay to practice being present, a skill that pays dividends in every other area of your life. Alternatively, you can use these moments for productive mental work. That slow-moving line is the perfect time to mentally rehearse your schedule for the day, to prioritize your tasks, or to reflect on a Stoic principle you're trying to embody. The time is no longer stolen, it is repurposed by your intentionality. Take a moment to bring to mind a recent delay that irritated you. It might have been a delayed train, a slow internet connection, or waiting for a family member who was running late. Recall how you felt in your body and mind. Now replay that same scene but with a Stoic lens. What if, in that moment, you had consciously accepted the wait as a simple fact like the weather? What if you had shifted your energy from resisting the delay to deciding how to use it? Could you have observed something interesting, planned something useful? Or simply practiced the art of standing calmly with your own thoughts? This small act of mental rehearsal prepares you for the next inevitable wait, building the neural pathway for a response of patience rather than a reaction of stress. By reframing these pauses not as interruptions to your life, but as part of the fabric of life itself, you reclaim them. You stop allowing external timelines to dictate your internal state, and you discover a deep, unshakable patience that can handle any delay. How we choose to end our day doesn't just affect our sleep, it sets the entire emotional and mental stage for the next one. Think of your evening not as a final collapse after a long march, but as a deliberate, gentle transition from the noise of the world to the quiet of your own inner sanctuary. The Stoics understood that the hour before sleep is a critical period for processing, releasing, and resetting. It's the time when we can either carry the clutter of the day's events into a restless night, or we can consciously lay it all down, ensuring we wake up with a clearer mind and a calmer heart. Seneca, in his profound wisdom, saw this nightly practice as essential for a life well lived. He advised a gentle review of the day, not to dwell on faults, but to learn from them with a spirit of compassion, writing, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day and go back over what I have done and said." But he took it a crucial step further, emphasizing the need for release, advising us to put aside the complaints of all of them and to forgive oneself and others. This combination of honest reflection and conscious forgiveness is the cornerstone of a truly restorative Stoic wind down. A Stoic evening ritual isn't about adding more tasks to your already full plate. It's about creating a simple, repeatable sequence that signals to your mind and body that the day's work is complete. It begins with a shift in environment. This could mean dimming the harsh overhead lights an hour before bed, perhaps lighting a single candle instead. The goal is to tell your nervous system, through your senses, that it's time to shift from doing to being. Next, consider replacing the stimulating glow of a television or phone screen with a few pages of something that nourishes your soul rather than agitates it. This isn't about studying complex philosophy. It could be rereading a few favorite passages from Marcus Aurelius or Epictetus, a book of poetry, or even just a physical novel. The act of reading from a physical book, away from the pings and notifications of the digital world, is in itself a powerful practice of focused attention and a declaration that this time is for you. After this gentle transition, you can move into the core of the practice, which can be beautifully simple. Start with a moment of gratitude. Before you even begin to review what went wrong, anchor yourself in what went right. Bring to mind 3 specific things from your day that you can be grateful for. It might be the warmth of the sun on your skin during your walk, the taste of a well-made meal, or a moment of genuine connection with a colleague. This isn't about ignoring difficulties. It's about building a foundation of appreciation that makes those difficulties easier to process. From that grounded place, you can then conduct a brief version of the Stoic evening review. Ask yourself Seneca's 3 questions with kindness, not criticism. What did I do well today? What could I have done better? Where did I invest energy in things outside my control? The key is to focus on the lessons, not the judgments. The final and most important step is the act of release. For any mistakes you identified, consciously forgive yourself. For any frustrations caused by others, consciously forgive them. And for all the outcomes and events that were beyond your control, visualize placing them in a box and setting that box aside for the night. You are acknowledging them, learning from them, but refusing to be weighed down by them any longer. This entire process can take less than 10 minutes, but its effects are profound. You are not just going to sleep, you are putting the day to rest. You are closing the loop, extracting its wisdom, and clearing the mental deck for a night of truly restorative rest. You drift off not with a mind churning with tomorrow's anxieties or today's regrets, but with a sense of peaceful closure. This practice ensures you wake up not with the lingering emotional residue of the previous day, but with a renewed sense of possibility and a mind ready to meet the new day with intention, not baggage. So tonight, why not experiment with designing your own brief Stoic wind down? It doesn't need to be perfect or lengthy. Choose just 1 or 2 elements, perhaps 5 minutes of quiet reading followed by a moment of gratitude and a single, deep breath as you consciously let go of everything beyond your command. Notice how this small act of intentional closure changes not just your sleep, but the very first moments of your tomorrow. And so we arrive at the heart of the matter. the beautiful synthesis where all these individual threads, the morning intention, the mindful pauses, the evening review begin to weave themselves together into a single, seamless tapestry of daily living. This is the crucial shift from seeing Stoicism as a collection of separate exercises to experiencing it as a unified way of being. It's the difference between learning individual notes on a piano and finally playing them together as a harmonious piece of music. The ancient Stoics didn't practice philosophy as a theoretical subject to be studied for an hour and then set aside. They lived it as a continuous, breathing practice that infused every action, no matter how small. Epictetus, with his characteristically direct style, cut straight to the core of this idea when he declared, "If you didn't learn these things in order to practice them, what did you learn them for?" His point was that philosophy is worthless if it remains an abstract idea. Its entire purpose is to be lived, to become the very lens through which we perceive and engage with the world from the moment we wake until the moment we sleep. This holistic approach is where the true magic of Stoicism reveals itself, because the practices are not meant to exist in isolation. They are designed to support and amplify one another in a powerful, compounding cycle. Think of your morning intentionality practice as setting the destination for your day's journey. You've charted the course, you know the virtues you want to embody. Then, throughout the day, your mindful pauses become the moments where you check your compass, ensuring you haven't been blown off course by a sudden storm of frustration or an unexpected detour of distraction. When an interruption arises, you don't just react, you apply the Stoic pause you've been training. You lean on the dichotomy of control, and you see the obstacle as the way. Each mindful commute, each moment of single tasking, each intentional breath is a subtle correction back toward that morning's intention. Finally, the evening review is where you pull out the map at the end of the day and trace your route with a gentle and honest eye. You see where you stayed true to your course and where you drifted, extracting the wisdom that will inform tomorrow's destination. This isn't a rigid checklist of tasks. It's an organic, self-correcting system for living with purpose. Creating this natural rhythm doesn't require a complete overhaul of your life. It starts with recognizing the connective tissue that already exists between these practices. Your morning intention might be to practice patience. That intention then becomes the theme you carry into your commute, where you consciously use a traffic jam as your training ground instead of a trigger for rage. Later, when a colleague interrupts your focus, that same theme of patience is there to guide your response, reinforced by the brief pause you take before reacting. And when you sit down for your evening review, you can specifically reflect on how well you embodied patience throughout the various challenges of the day. You are not doing three separate things. You are applying one central Stoic principle across three different contexts, allowing it to deepen and root itself more firmly in your character. The practices stop being items on a to-do list and start becoming different facets of the same mindful awareness, a constant, gentle hum of presence in the background of your life. The compounding effect of this integrated approach is its greatest gift. You will begin to notice that the patience you cultivated during your commute makes it easier to employ the Stoic pause during a work conflict. The mindfulness you practiced while doing the dishes helps you listen more attentively to your partner in the evening. The gratitude you expressed for your morning coffee makes it easier to find perspective during an afternoon delay. Each practice strengthens the mental muscles used in all the others, creating a virtuous cycle where your entire day becomes one continuous, flowing practice in virtue. The boundaries between your Stoic exercises and your ordinary life begin to dissolve until they are one and the same. You are no longer a person who does Stoicism. You are a person who lives stoically, and your entire existence becomes the practice ground. So as we near the end of our exploration, I want to offer you a simple, practical way to begin weaving this tapestry for yourself. Look back over the practices we've discussed, from the morning ritual to the evening wind down. Which two resonate with you most deeply right now? Perhaps it's starting your day with a clear intention and ending it with a brief review. Maybe it's committing to mindful pauses between tasks and a conscious effort to single task. Choose just two that feel authentic and manageable for you. Your challenge is not to master them all at once, but to focus on integrating those two chosen practices into a consistent rhythm tomorrow. Notice how they talk to each other, how one supports the other, and how together they begin to create a subtle but powerful shift in the quality of your day and the ownership of your time. This is how a philosophy becomes a way of life, not through grand, sweeping gestures, but through the quiet, consistent weaving of wisdom into the ordinary fabric of your existence. And so we arrive at the final and perhaps most liberating insight of all. We cannot add more hours to our day, but we can infinitely deepen the hours we already have. Reclaiming time isn't about frantic productivity hacks or cramming more into an already overflowing schedule. It's about a fundamental shift in perception, learning to see the hidden architecture for a meaningful life that is already built into the bricks and mortar of your most ordinary days. This is the true promise of Stoicism. It doesn't ask you to find more time. It teaches you to transform the time you're already living. Through the simple yet profound practices we've explored, starting your day with purpose instead of reaction, meeting interruptions with calm adaptability, finding focus in single tasking, and ending with reflective closure, you aren't just managing your schedule. You are reclaiming your attention, your intention, and your very presence. You are moving from being a passenger in your own life to becoming its skilled pilot. Think of the key structures we've walked through together. That morning moment of intentionality, where you set the tone for your day before the world can set it for you. The mindful pauses you insert between tasks, creating vital space for clarity instead of clutter. The practice of using inevitable waiting periods for reflection instead of distraction. The evening review, where you gently learn from the day's events and then peacefully let them go. Each one of these is a Stoic tool, but together they form a cohesive philosophy for living. They are not items on a daunting to-do list. They are different doors into the same room, a mind that is calm, focused, and resilient because it is anchored in what is truly within its control. The Roman philosopher Seneca, whose wisdom has guided us throughout, offered a closing thought that cut straight to the heart of this matter. He wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a great deal of it." Life is long enough, and it has been given in sufficient measure for the accomplishment of the very greatest things, if the whole of it were well invested. This is the ultimate takeaway. A life well lived isn't measured by its length on a calendar, but by its depth in each moment. It is found in the quality of your attention, the integrity of your actions, and the peace you cultivate regardless of external circumstances. You have been given more than enough time to live a great life. The Stoic structures are simply the means to unlock it, hidden in plain sight within your commute, your work, your meals, and your quiet moments at home. This journey doesn't require you to change everything at once. In fact, the most Stoic approach is to start small, deliberately, and consistently. Choose just one practice from this video that resonated most deeply with you. Perhaps it's the 5-minute evening review, or the decision to take one commute this week without your phone, or simply the commitment to pause and take a single breath before responding to a trigger. Master that one thing, let it become a natural part of your rhythm. Feel the difference it makes in how you experience your time, and then, from that place of success, consider adding another. Lasting change is built not through grand, sweeping gestures, but through the quiet, cumulative power of small, daily disciplines. I would love to hear which of these ideas landed most powerfully for you. Was it the concept of Memento Mori that shifted your perspective, or the practice of turning chores into meditation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's continue this conversation and learn from each other's experiences. If you found this exploration of Stoic living valuable, and you'd like to dive deeper into this ancient philosophy for modern life, please consider subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications. Thank you for investing this time in yourself, for choosing to explore a different way of moving through your days. May you find not just more hours, but more life in